Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another video here at Red Dirt Reptiles. Those of you who don't know, better watch some of my old videos. Let's get right into it. So, I've been kind of off my game. You'll have to apologize. I've had some breeding going on here at my place and it's kind of thrown me off and I'm kind of having to pick back up and catch myself up on these videos. So, I apologize to all you viewers out there. So I'm going to kind of cover a little bit of information that I missed in my previous video, and then we'll kick right off into what it is that we're covering in this video. So the last video, one thing I didn't mention, I got three topics to talk about real quick. One is the scientific name behind these guys, Python regius. So R-E-G-I-U-S, Python regius. That is the scientific name behind the royal python, or AKA ball python. Okay, so topic number 2 would be temperatures. I was just about to talk about this in the last video, and for some reason I got caught up and sidetracked and didn't. So, daytime temps for these guys are around 80 to 85 degrees. Basking is somewhere between 90 to 95. I've heard a lot of people say, you know, mid 80s to mid 90s. I'm low to mid 90s. I preferably like one around 95 degree basking spot. And then down at night you want it to be no colder than 70 degrees, but somewhere probably around 74 to 76 degrees at night would play great for them. Man, there was one more thing that I really wanted to touch on. Oh, yes. Experience level. Okay, so I kind of mentioned this. I'll just throw it out there real quick. This is the perfect starter snake. Perfect starter snake. Why? Okay, there are a bunch of reasons why, but I'm going to name off just a few just right off the hand. You can't get no better when it comes to being able to walk around and transport a ball python. It's just, they're so easy because they ball up. You literally just stick them in your pocket and walk around all day. How cool. My wife, right there in her bra, stays warm, no big deal, okay? Another thing about these pythons, ball pythons especially, you get the look of an extremely cool looking huge snake without the massive size. Now here's the catch part. You get the size in the girth, but not in the length, so you get the compromise. What looks like a big snake that is really not all that big of a snake and is very easy to maintain. So again, these are the perfect starter animals, the perfect novice, beginner, whatever you want to call it, from just met reptiles today to I've been around reptiles for 30 years now, and these right here are still some of my absolute favorite. They are by far one of my wife's favorites. They're just all around loved here at Red Dirt Reptiles. Okay, so those topics aside and my brain shot to the side, let's get into today's video. Feeding. What do these guys eat? Well, ironically enough, these guys are herbivores and love lettuce. I'm joking. These things are definitely carnivores, definitely not eating any lettuce. There's no omnivore, no herbivore, which for those of us who aren't smart, is someone who only eats meat, or sorry, who eats meat and vegetables, or someone who only eats vegetables. This guy's a carnivore, which means only meat. And on the flip side of that, it's a whole prey diet. So at this size, you really aren't feeding too much other than rats or mice, because that's about what they're taking. But when they get bigger, a little bigger, if you get like baby chicken, you know, raw chicken or something like that, little chicken legs, stuff like that, they can take that down. That's crazy, but they can. But for the most part, these guys love rats, okay? So like for the first 3 to 5 weeks, months maybe, be on rat pinkies, or pinky mice really actually is what I would probably go with, because rat pinkies are a little bigger. Actually, right before you phase up to the next size, then I would go to rat pinkies and kind of supplement in rat fuzzies. But at about 200 grams, which is, you know, still only about this long, you're feeding rat fuzzies and small mouse. And I would say about every 5 to 7 days. If you are at an adult, or let's say sub-adult, which is where he's at, which is about 400 to 450 grams. He is going to be on a weaned rat or a multitude of adult mice. And we feed him every 7 to 10 days. As an adult, full-grown adult, for anything over about 200 or 2,000 grams, are going to be eating medium rats, 2 small rats, every 10 to 14 days, depending on how you're feeding them. In general, a rule of thumb is to not feed inside the enclosures. If you haven't ever worked with a snake and you're getting your first reptile, please feed your damn snake outside the enclosure, because guaranteed you're probably not taking it out enough for it to understand the difference. And if you are awesome, practice good methods though, makes for a better keeper down the road. Don't feed the damn thing in its enclosure. Feed it in something else. It saves you and the animal the stress of getting bit or wondering if you indeed have food. Okay? The easiest way to do this is to put them in like a small tote or something like that. That locks. Leave one side locked, put the snake down in there, or actually put the snake down in there, put the lid on, lock one side, take a mouse, use your tongs, be smart, open the end, drop the mouse in, close the lid, boom, done. Whether you feed live or frozen thawed, I'm not going to bash on you one way or the other. Now, do most of us prefer to do it the humane way and go frozen thawed? Absolutely. Just because who wants to deal with blood and guts, and who wants to deal with maybe potentially watching one of your animals get messed up in the process of you feeding them? Because even though we're feeding them mice and rats and chickens and, depending on the reptile, all kinds of other stuff, you got to think that the animals that we're feeding them, if live, still have feelings that are going to fight back. So your animal's liable to get messed up. I drop a weaned rat in for him, and he's liable to lose an eyeball, lose a chunk of his head, or even get killed, honestly, by a weaned rat if it's not stunned or he doesn't get it right. So if you're going to do live, pay close attention, because all it takes is that one time. Even if you've been watching them eat live your entire life, their entire lives, years and years, one time is all it takes for that bad time for to cause your animal to go down. That being said, I am not a PETA preacher whatsoever. This little bastard right here will not eat anything but live. If you give him frozen thawed, he'll walk away. If you thump it, okay, and set it down in there where it just shakes, where you don't have to worry about it messing him up, he moves right on by, doesn't give a shit. You have to put it in there live. He wants the thrill of the hunt. Thank God he's the only one in my house that's like that. Now, do all my other animals, if I gave them live food that are carnivores and omnivores, hell yeah, they would love life. But this is the one guy in my household, hell, even my retic eats frozen thawed. Chicken wings from me, right out of my hand. Anyway, this one right here has to have live mice. So, they're tricky, because ball pythons are notorious for being picky. They could choose color, and you feed them a white mouse 3 times in a row, oh boy, you hope you don't bring home a black or a brown, because mama's kicking it out the door. She don't want it. It's stupid. If you feed them in a certain spot and then try and change it up, sometimes they will become aggressive, because they are not a big fan of change. Once they get a habit down, they like to keep that habit. And it's nice for you to keep that habit. Again, keeps less stress on you, less stress on the animal. But again, it's just safe practicing to feed outside the enclosure. Ball pythons, who are notorious picky eaters for what they eat and when they eat and how they eat, just find what works for you and your snake and go on about it. Here's another crappy part. Ball pythons, although amazing and lovely little snaky poos, are notorious for going off food for no reason for months, and it'll piss you off. First, it'll start to worry you, and if you're like any other reptile keeper who's just starting off, you're gonna freak out. Why is my snake not eating? Oh shit! We're gonna dial 100 different people, and even though each person is gonna tell us the same thing, we're gonna get 100 more different opinions, because we want to know, is our snake starving itself? Now, the reality, people, is no reptile will starve itself. given the opportunity to eat food, presented with food, no reptile will literally starve itself. If you're providing all its husbandry on point, everything in that manner as far as habitat and husbandry, your animal's not going to starve itself. But will it go off food? Hell yes. Okay, I've had a ball python go off food for 5.5 months. I've got friends that have had their ball pythons going off of food for 8.5 months. As a matter of fact, the lady who's shooting this video right now for me, love you, Jessica. Her ball python and her husband's ball python went off for around 9 months. You talk about freaking out. But if your animal goes off food and you're not seeing significant changes in their body mass, it kind of throws people through a loop. It's just weird that an animal can do that. They can regulate and thermoregulate themselves and their digestive tract so well that they can go off food for a fat minute. Ball pythons are none the exception, and in fact are probably one of the best examples because they go off of food just randomly for no reason. Most of my females that I've had, I've never had go over off of food for more than 3 months, but I have had a male go off for, like I said, for 5.5 months. And if I'm not mistaken, it was their male that went off for close to 9 months. So it's insane what these animals are capable of, what they endure, or what they will put themselves through if they're feeling stressed, or if they're feeling afraid, or they just don't feel the need. You know, seasonal changes also, depending on where you live, can change that a lot. It can also change on how they feed. If it's getting cooler out there, your animal may slow down with eating because it senses the change in nature. And in this time, this is when brumation happens, when most of these guys disappear for the winter season. So just keep that in mind. If you're doing frozen thawed, you definitely want to let it completely thaw out before you feed it to the animal. Good rule of thumb is to put it in warm water and let it warm up or thaw down to, or thaw out to at least room temperature. I personally like to go a little past room temperature. So room temperature on average is about 72 degrees, okay? 70 to 72 degrees. I present these guys at about 76 to 78 degrees as far as my ball pythons go. I want it to be a little warmer, almost like it still had a heartbeat. They like that heat. They can sense a heat signature. So it lets them know that it's food, not just a smell, but that there's actual heat and food and a meal right in front of them. Works out perfectly. Do not, and I'm going to repeat this again, okay? Check this out. I'm going to put this towel right here in front of my face. Do not microwave your freaking animals. You know how many people I've had, oh, I don't want to thaw it out. I'll just throw it in the microwave for, I don't know, 5-10 seconds. Open the microwave, having exploded mouse all over their microwave. By the way, people, there's no getting that out. No. Throw the microwave away, because it's ruined. You don't get that out. You can clean the blood and guts. It's still in the filter in there. It's going to smell burnt mouse for the rest of forever. No, thank you. People, I can't believe I'm even having to say this, but I have had so many people mention this throughout my time in the reptile industry that is ridiculous because, you know, most people who are new to the reptile game who've never been told are going to try that. Quick dethaw. Oh, just hit the dethaw button on the microwave. No, bad. Bad. It's bad news bears for you and for whatever you're putting in there. So don't do it, okay? If you got a question about feeding, you got a comment you want to say about feeding, drop a comment, drop the question, drop a like, subscribe, share. I'll get back to you, answer any questions you've got to have, or any questions you might have, or hell, make a comment. Let's start a conversation and talk about these things because they're some of the best out there. And if anybody else has got good information for me to hear, I'd love to hear it too. Let's get out there and educate the world together. Red Dirt Reptiles. We'll see y'all next time.